Today I'm in Finland at the Silver Birch Resort, where they've got 5 of these prefab cottages that are 334 square feet, 31 square meters, and are raised 10 feet above the ground. The reason that I'm here is to talk to the guy who built the resort and find out what they've done, why they've done it, and maybe if there was anything that they'd change. This is one of the most interesting places that I have ever seen, so I'm excited to chat to Theo and just see what he's got to say. I guess we could start with, how did you come up with the design for the cabins?
Designed for the cabin, so we wanted something that could allow people to be fully immersive in nature. So we wanted to have the windows as such. You can't really see the other cabins when you're inside, and you have a complete view of the water. I like bird watching, so when you're inside there, during the winter, during the summer, when there's mosquitoes, it's almost like you're in some form of bird watching tower, but you're not touched by the elements. And the other great thing about it is you can see the northern lights from the roof. So it gives you everything you need for it also to be what I consider to be a bit of a regenerative experience. Because I don't want us to be selling luxury, I want us to sell location. And the location is what makes this place great. If you observe the height of the cabins, this isn't for fun. It's because I decided to build on a swamp, and we had to build 0.5 meters above the 100-year flood. So they have to be elevated like this, and without the height we can't build. The factory built this cabin, it's solid wood, but the design for me, it's more Nordic design, it's more simplistic, and the interior, we've done nothing to it. We've put a bed and a sofa bed, so we've kept it as simplistic as possible. And the idea behind this is there's nothing really catching your eye. So when you're in there, the only thing you can do is look out the windows.
Right.
And for me as an entrepreneur, every time I feel like I'm getting to that point in the day or even in the week where I'm like, oh my goodness, I think I'm overdoing it. If I come here for a night, I kind of go back down to a level that I can go back to work.
Right.
You know?
And when you started looking, were there a lot of modular companies in the area to choose from?
Yeah, there were, but from what I've observed, this build hasn't been used much in the Rovaniemi. We were actually the first ones to use these cabins, and we didn't want to be picking anything which is like used broadly in the industry in Lapland at the moment. We wanted to have something where the design element is for our use, and this works.
And was this a standard plan that they had, or is this something that you guys came up with specifically for your site?
In Lapland, this is the only one like this.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, so the usual models don't have this entrance, it's just almost like just one rectangle. So we've added this L element into it, which makes it, rather than I think a 26 square meter unit, it makes it a 31 square meter unit, which means we can accommodate families rather than just couples.
Gotcha. Okay, when you're planning something like this, I imagine you try to think of every possible idea, but often there's things that happen after the fact that you're like, oh, maybe I would have changed that. Is there anything that you would change? Like, I know you're doing a second phase. Would you change anything going into the second phase, or were you happy with how it all went and how it turned out?
That's a good question. Okay, so there was 2 days prior to sending the final plans to the city, and during those 2 days I suddenly had a lot of ideas and questions I had to ask the person who designed the whole site. Okay, and one of them was, for example, the restaurant. Why is our restaurant facing the forest when if you turn it 10 degrees to the left you're facing the lake? And he was like, oh, that's a good point. I was like, yeah, do it, please. We can't send these plans. And it's the same for the cabins. In the original design, they're designed with buff. And I said, turn them all 10 degrees.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're not looking at the next cabin. In terms of other things I would change, one of the plans had made an allowance for us to put the cabins an extra 10 meters that way, so literally over the edge of the lake. But you've been stood down there. It's swamp. So already we are at risk having these here, and every time we have the builders on site and the architects on site, the problems that we have here will continue because we're on a swamp.
Okay.
You put a lot of weight on, eventually it will start to sink and the land broadens. So just yesterday we had to flatten the car park again. Just 6 months ago we had to do the car park again.
Okay.
So it's moral of the story is don't build on a swamp.
Right.
The engineers did say, Theo, you're probably going to be fully booked in the summer just from Finnish engineers on how to build on a swamp.
Yeah. So what did you do for the foundation to kind of anticipate the flooding?
We did a lot of drilling. So we discovered that actually the hard ground is 30 meters down. So each cabin has 12 pylons, which are 30 meters deep. And then above the pylons we have hardcore, and then we have these massive concrete structures underneath that we then put these steel beams up on. And still, my goodness, if you're in a cabin with me, I can run into a wall and you can hear the thing shake.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, it's safe.
Yeah.
But you know that you're elevated when you do
Right.
that. You
Okay.
know? There's like a little...
Okay. So they've been here for a year now, and I don't know if it flooded last summer, but have they moved it all from that aspect?
I don't think so, no. We completed these in February. The flood this year didn't really come.
Okay.
It was pretty much as it is now, maybe 1 foot up. 2 years ago, I was canoeing through the forest at the same level as this. I had to canoe in, so the road was completely gone. So we're hoping that we don't get that 100-year flood for a while. Yeah, we haven't had any problems with this one. With the restaurants, we had some issues. So the restaurant, we had one of the windows break, and we don't know if it's because of foundations moving or what it was. We haven't really got an end result for why the window smashed.
Yeah.
But it was severely shattered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it does flood and it's the same case where you're canoeing through where you'd be parking, will you stay open and offer that? No, to close her down, hey?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the way I speak about it to my team is, yeah, we'll stay open because it's a fantastic marketing opportunity.
Right.
But realistically, we need to have access for emergency services.
Makes sense.
So, I mean, the cowboy in me says yes.
Right.
But the entrepreneur in me says, no, we'll do
Keep
it
it
properly.
safe.
Yeah.
Right. It's not too cold right now, but I imagine it gets quite cold here in the winter. So how do you insulate the water and the sewer so that it doesn't freeze up when they're above ground like this?
Oh, fantastic question. We'll come and look over at cabin 2 here, as you can see there's been a bit of digging going on. So here's our piping. It comes down. Obviously, inside of this, it is all massively insulated, and this is heated wires. Okay, so in the winter, these end up being massive icicles all the way around.
Okay.
So it's the same as our piping underground. So one of the problems with the piping on this land is, yes, we've had to insulate it massively and put like electrical wires that heat the pipes. But because we are in a swamp and it's very close to the level of the river, we can't dig to the usual depth of 3 meters, which is where in Lapland you usually put the pipes. Because at 3 meters, the frost doesn't usually reach.
Okay.
We're at 2 meters, which is why we've had to spend a lot of money on the way that we insulate the pipes. And the pipes, if you look at where we are, if you look through the forest behind you, you'll see that's where the restaurant is. It's a bit of distance. And behind the restaurant is where the poo tank is. Okay, so the pumping system here is pretty intensive.
Okay.
So if something freezes, we're in trouble.
It's a problem.
And guess what? It freezes here, really. Last winter we had minus 42 or something here.
Okay.
So it becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
And of course, with it so elevated, the heating is underfloor heating. We are just really hoping that something doesn't go wrong by chance.
Right. Okay.
Because if the electricity kills and the underfloor heating freezes,
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get it back up again.
Okay.
So there's there are issues which hopefully won't happen. We call them Lapland problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So is the underfloor heating is it warm water circulating then?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Now, obviously, having these raised up the 3 meters looks incredible. It's probably going to make the experience of staying in it that much more fun. But if you weren't on a swamp and say you didn't have those flooding issues, would you do it like this again, or would you just put them on the ground?
The creative side of me wants to say I do it like this again.
Yeah.
The side of me that likes to risk assess finances would say I put it on the ground.
Okay, gotcha.
So if we look at the broader scope of life, I'd probably say we do it like this again.
Yeah.
Because it's better to do something you really like than to do something too safely.
Right, okay, I like that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm excited to stay in this tonight.
Pleasure.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks. There you have it, folks, an inside look at the creation of Silver Birch Resort. 5 prefab cabins, all raised 10 feet above the ground and built on a floodplain. This is one of the coolest places that I've ever seen. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.